we stand so tall. When we share their voice, we won't let them fall. Jobs to build and homes to fill. That's the song of Coalville.
Hi everyone, and welcome to our first podcast of Chat in the Ville. So my name's Cara, I'm going to be the host for today, and we are here at Coalville Can with the lovely Tia. She is a young adult, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about housing. So welcome, Tia.
Hello.
First of all, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm just put on the spot, so but basically live in Coalville, have done all my life. I don't know what else to say though.
Are you currently working?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, currently working. I work in the precinct at Bird's Bakery. Best cakes. Sorry, Greg's. But yeah, I'm currently working, and I've only recently just started to get involved with Coalville Can. So yeah, it's really fun. So
Yeah.
far.
So for people that don't know Coalville Can, what is it that you come here to do? What does it do for you?
Well, basically, even though I've only just recently started coming here, it's quite, it's basically a hub, it's like, got different aspects to it. So it's for people to come in and sit here, have a cup of tea,
Yeah.
or people can buy things that people have made locally. There's classes, and there's, what's another word? I can't think of another word.
Like workshops?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Workshops, stuff like that. That people can come in and do. It's not it's not appointment based. It's not. You can just come in and
There's just a space for people to come, get some
Yes.
support, advice, and socialise with other people.
Yes.
So one of the reasons why we've come here today is to talk to young adults about housing and some of the issues that you can face in Coalville because of the housing. So we're just going to start off with a scaling question. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you about being able to afford your own house? So 1 being not worried whatsoever, 10 being, oh my gosh, I don't know how this is going to happen.
10.
10. Okay.
Definitely 10. Yeah.
So let's unpack some of that then. What are some of, why is it a 10?
I mean, I was probably being a bit dramatic there. I'd probably say about a 9. But I think it's a very daunting thing. I mean, like when, like as a young person, you sort of have that transition of, you've got school, college, and then you've got the obviously having somewhere to live. But I think one of the main things is like affordability, like education about it as well, because not a lot of people actually know what it all entails. But I would definitely think as well that there's not many places around here that are available, I'd say, unless like they build things but they're not affordable.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously you do have council housing and private renting and stuff like that, but you want to be able to have that option for yourself to be able to save and then have your own home and do that. But
Yeah.
it's a very daunting thing, I'd say. Like actually thinking about it, but you want it to be easy. You want to be able to ask people that question, and then for them to say, "Oh, probably a bit apprehensive, but I'm not worried about it."
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't think a lot of people would probably rate it very.
Yeah.
They probably agree with me on that part.
Yeah. So a lot of young adults are worried. So you spoke a bit about the affordability, and all that kind of stuff. But what are some of the issues that young adults face around actually being able to afford, say, their own home or a mortgage?
I'd probably say the main thing is an education on it. Because when I was in school, we didn't get taught anything like that. I mean, you have your basics, you have, maths, English, all of that stuff to be able to have, you know, all those qualifications, but then there isn't lessons on things that come after. You know, like you get your qualifications to help you get a job, then what you then don't have is the education or the knowledge to actually do things that apply to housing or that are, you know, important for your life ahead. So, you know, I think it's a lack of education in that part, which is, you know, not very helpful because it's a big part of your life.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to be well versed on it, I'd say. But as well as that, I think affordability as well, because despite having a job, you also want to live your life. You also want to, you know, be able to do things, but then you'd be saving. You'd also be paying bills or rent if you know, excuse me, live at home or, you know, stuff like that. So it's, you know, a lot of things that sort of tap into it that don't really help. But I would definitely say the education part of it. I think if you had more of a knowledge about it, then you'd feel a bit more confident in going into it. It wouldn't feel so daunting, you know.
And also off the top of my head, thinking about the education side of things as well. So understanding the systems on how you would go about getting a house. Do you get much education around like the financial system that backs that up? So like what it is to have a good credit rating.
Yeah.
Do you get much information around that from schools?
I wouldn't say so, no. I mean, like, you know, when I was at school, there wasn't any lesson focus on anything like that. And, you know, I think you get the general idea of, oh, you know, I'll move out, I'll rent a flat, and that'll be that. But then there's sides of it that, you know, mortgage wise, or then you've got obviously you have to deal with the bank, and then like you said with the credit, and you know, a lot of people don't realize that this is like a massive part of it. So, you know, it's definitely not something that people are taught. I'd say, you know, it's, I mean, to be honest, I didn't know. Like I knew the basics of, so, you know, like if you move out, you have to pay rent and you live in a flat. But then, like with mortgages, like if someone would mention it, I'd be like, I don't know what you're on about. I don't know what you're on about. So, you know, it's yeah. I think they're a bit. I know that things can be made basic, but I do think sometimes they are very confusing. So it's, you know, even for adults. So I think if it's confusing for them, it's definitely going to be confusing for someone who has no general idea with it. So
Definitely, it's definitely confusing for adults. So I don't know how some young people navigate the way around it. So we touched a little bit about private renting. So obviously if people wanted to go down the route of buying their own house, that takes a long time to save for a deposit. So you're more likely going to be renting during that time.
Yeah.
What, aside from the money kind of side of it, what do you think are some of the issues around private renting?
I think availability. I mean, I know that obviously there are places aside from council housing and letting agencies and stuff, but, you know, I don't think sometimes they're not advertised with private renting. But with sorry, I had the point and it's gone now.
That's okay.
I was on track, but then it just completely went. Because I lived in a flat that was private rented, and obviously it's different to, say, if it was like, you know, there's different rules to it. So I think it's, you know, getting educated on certain things, because I got into arrears at one point, and, you know, I didn't think, I was like, oh, you know, I don't really know what to do, and then my landlord's actually having to tell me this is what you need to do. So it's quite a I mean, I did sort it eventually, but it's that issue presenting itself and then you not knowing what to do. So it's one of those that just sort of I don't know. I don't know how to, with the private rent and stuff, I mean, I think as well, they can be a lot higher in price. And obviously because it is private rented, they're entitled to do so. But I think sometimes it can be not off-putting. I don't really know how to say it.
Is it like more of a barrier? It's more of an obstruction.
That's the one. Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I mean, like with with council housing, obviously it's more attainable, but then, you know, if you're wanting to go into private renting, it's not as attainable. Sorry, I'm trying to articulate
No,
myself.
you
I do know what I'm trying to
you
say.
are doing very well. So it's it can be nervous sometimes when you're trying to think of your points.
Because I can hear it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like trying to say it and it's not coming out. So, but yeah, I mean, my experience with private renting, it was mostly positive.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you've got the side of it where it's like he's telling me things that I didn't know. You know, like with, I mean, obviously it's common knowledge that if you do fall behind on certain things, but then it's, you know, other parts of it that I wasn't knowledgeable about. So yeah.
I suppose there are different challenges for different sectors, isn't there? So with private housing, there's a lot of issues around that.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about social housing now. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate social housing? So 1 being really, really good. No, 1 being really poor, 10 being really good. Sorry.
I would probably say, as an overall, I'd probably say a 7.
Okay.
Ish. Because while it is a good thing, I think a lot of the issues that come with it sort of lower its overall score for that. I mean, you've got applying for it, which is something that you might not be confident in. And then you've got the waiting list.
Yeah.
And then you've got, say, for instance, you want it in an area like Coalville, but then I know they give you the option, but then say the only available one is like 10 miles away. And then they're saying, oh, you know, this is the only one you can have. And then that's a factor then that, you know, gets in the way of, you know. And then I think as well, like, it's happening again. I was just thinking of it, it's gone. But I would say, like, with the whole process of applying and then looking at I'd just say overall, it's like when it comes to housing with it, it's very daunting. Like when you don't have that confidence, it's very sort of overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know, but I think with the council housing, it's probably social housing. Sorry, it's probably the easiest option as well, because with it, you're put on a list, but then you are essentially guaranteed to be able, you know, to get somewhere. But it might take a bit of a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So there's a lot of issues there around, you know, the availability, the wait, and all that kind of stuff. We touched a little bit on this earlier, just before we were chatting before this podcast, just about the information that you received growing up from either education or training about housing. Like, what information did you learn?
I mean, from what I can remember, not a lot. You know, I think you just learn from your environment, really, more than actually getting told things. I mean, you know, when you're in school, you're there a lot. You know, you're there for the majority of the day. So, you know, that's a big part of your growing up. And then when you're not being told things that actually apply later on in life, it's not particularly helpful.
Yeah.
So I can't remember anything from when I was in school.
No.
So you have to learn from around you, or say, you know, your parents or your siblings if you've got them, or, you know, if
or
you've
your
got,
landlord.
or your landlord. In my case, yeah. So, but yeah, I think that's not. It's actually quite sad to think that I didn't, you know, get taught something that would benefit me later on.
Yeah.
But I mean, the only time I did get told about stuff like that is when I lived in supported accommodation, because they provided the resources for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was their goal to then make sure that I could have the knowledge of it and the confidence to then be able to like open a letter from the council and not go, oh God, like I'd actually be able to be like, okay, yeah, I can do that. So, you know, but I think there's an opportunity there for it to be taught beforehand, not after it's happened, if that makes sense. You know, like rather like more of a preventative rather than, you know,
rather than a necessity, because you're now in a situation where you need to learn that
like
you need to get yourself a house. Or, excuse me. So that's, I mean, it almost seems like education is geared up to get us to get jobs, but then it doesn't tell us what to do once we've had a job, or what we do with the money, or how we pay our bills, and all that kind of stuff. So obviously we spoke about lots of different issues and different, you know, within all the realms of housing, all the different sectors. What we're really keen is about promoting change. So we really want to hear from you what can be done to improve that situation for young adults.
I definitely think having knowledge of it helps, because then you're not lost on what comes later. You know, you've got the confidence with it. In my experience, being told after it happened it's just not helpful. You know, you need to know beforehand to be better equipped with it. And I think as well, then not having excuse me, you're then not going to have issues with it in later life. You know, you're more well versed in it.
And prepared as well, I would say.
Yeah, and you've got that one less thing to worry about then. You know, if you're more equipped to deal with it, then it's not as stressful, I'd say. I mean, obviously it will be stressful because a lot of things are stressful, but I feel like you'd be a bit more confident about it, and then you wouldn't have issues, say like you said earlier about not knowing when it comes to mortgages or certain bills, or what happens when you get in arrears, and you know. But I think a lot of things are geared up to be like, okay, you've got a job, and then that's it. Like nothing, don't get told after that. You know, it's sort of like you get a job, that's it. You're sort of sent on your way. I think a lot of things are just sort of left where they are. So
and I think as well, a lot of young adults, they will get that money, they will get that first job, and you might, you know, like fall behind with arrears, or you might not have a very good credit rating because actually all the money that you've spent on rent is not counting towards that. So it's I think you're right, it's really important that we get that education early on. So you spoke a little bit about it being stressful, and I was just wondering what does this whole housing, like where am I going to live, how am I going to afford this, what overall effect does that have on like young adults' mental health?
A massive like impact, I'd say. I mean, because obviously having somewhere to live is like the most basic thing. You know, that's what makes you feel safe. It's what makes you feel secure. And even though, say, you know, you live at home, but then you want that independence, you want that, you know, you want to be able to then live your life. But then if you have obstacles in the way of that, it impacts you with your mental health, because then you're worrying about it, and then it develops into an anxiety, and then, you know, you're thinking, I'm not going to be able to do this, I'm not going to be able to do that, and then, you know, you've got that mentality of, oh, you know, I'm probably not going to be able to do it, and then you just sort of fall into that. Okay, I might as not. You know, there's no reassurance, I'd say, either of, you know, when you look in the news or you read somewhere and it's like, oh, you know, rent's increasing and this is increasing, but you're not going to be able to afford it. And it's kind of like, okay, it's not really giving me much hope. So
Yeah.
that kind of thing, you know.
So yeah, so if you haven't got that hope, then you know
Why-
why carry on
Yeah.
and push yourself to? Yeah, I totally get that.
Which is a horrible mentality, because you want to be able to, you know, obviously when you are, you know, coming out of school and you go into college and stuff like that, you're not going to straight away think, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get a mortgage, I'm going to do that. Like, you are going to live your life. But then when it comes to that point, you want to be able to be confident in your ability to do it, rather than it being so like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. And you want to be able to have that, not necessarily hope, but you want to have that sort of like excitement of it, because it is an exciting thing. Like, you're starting your own life and you want that independence, you know, so that it should be a happy moment rather than a depressing one.
And also, it should be something seems quite achievable. But I could imagine that it would feel like those goalposts are getting
away.
further and further away.
Yeah, it's, you know, I mean, even looking at it now, it's, especially in this area, I'd say, even the rent is quite high.
Yeah.
And then when you think about the rent, then you have to also think about the bills on top. And then you have to think, you know, about, say, putting money aside, or, you know, but then living on top of that. So then, you know, you just think, okay, well, I might as well just not bother. Which is, you shouldn't, I don't, you know, it's horrible to think like that, but then you do, because you just sort of think,
Yeah.
well, I don't want to, because it's not achievable.
Exactly.
You know, you want to be able to look at a listing or a house and think, oh, you know, that's achievable.
Yeah. So we've spoken a lot about some like big things that could happen to help the situation. So like education, affordability. Obviously, those things are kind of on a big scale, and that would be something that like nationally we'd need to implement those changes. But if we could do something specifically for Coalville, what changes would you make to Coalville if you could?
In like
So if you could wave your magic wand and have the ultimate solution for housing in Coalville, what would you say Coalville needs?
I would say more single housing.
Okay.
That's quite a big one. I mean, I know majority of people that live here, you know, they've got families, but then you've got working people who might not be with someone, or if they are with their partner, they just want their own space. But I think there is a lack of that, you know, like say 1-bedroom flat, or, you know, because they build houses, but it's like you said, with like affordability, you would go for the one that you can afford. You know, I'm not gonna look at a 4-bedroomed house and be like, oh, I'll get that. I would look at excuse me, the 1-bedroom or the 2, you know. So I think that is one thing with Coalville. I'd probably say, as well as that, having more. See what that's the thing. My point's gone now. I was on track as well. I would definitely say though, more single person housing.
Yeah.
Like, that is more the thing, because it's no good building a house and then it's laying empty because people aren't going in it. You know, you want young people to be able to be like, okay, I'll go. You know, I'll apply for that. I'll apply for that house because I am able to do so.
Yeah.
You know, so. But yeah.
Is there anything to do around education, or, you know, anything that Coalville could do as a community to kind of?
I mean, I think Coalville it plays a very big part in providing the information.
Yeah.
You know, because they have leaflets everywhere. They have a Facebook page. They have, you know, that it caters to every sort of person that would see it. So that definitely, I mean, like, off the top of my head, I probably would just say here. You know, that's the only place that I can really think of
Yeah.
that would actually provide information for it, or, you know, advice, really. That's the only place, really. So, I mean, yeah, that is it, actually.
And if you were sat here and it wasn't me and it was a representative from the council or somebody who's, you know, got the power to make these changes in like policy or law, is there anything that you would say to them?
Maybe try and focus more of an overall rather than a, you know, because like young people are, you know, they are the people that will eventually, you know, to grow up. You know, it's the cycle, isn't it? But I think it gets pushed aside a lot, you know, I think, and it needs to be a focal point to then be preventative, if that makes sense. You know, like if you put things in place, then I keep, sorry.
No, honestly.
I've got really good points in my head and then they just don't come out. Yeah, I think more of a focus on people who are just not starting out, but, you know, like people who are beginning. You know, I think that's something that's forgotten about.
Yeah.
You know, like you want to be able to make sure people feel secure in themselves and they have that confidence in the council or like a housing facility, I don't know, but I would just say more of a focus on young people, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like not entirely, but so that their needs are then met, you know, because back when my mum was young, you know, they could afford the housing because it was a
lot cheaper.
a lot cheaper.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and I walk past, say, a letting agency and I look at it and I think that's just something that's not, you know.
So is it about speaking to the people who are actually affected by these issues?
Yeah, I mean, I think putting people who are, rather than it being a quote or a demographic, like actually having people in front of you telling you this is what the issue is, this is what the problem is, I think that would then bring people more into that reality rather than it being in the abstract.
Yeah.
You know, because it's it's easy to be like, okay, that doesn't affect them, but then when there's actually people in front of you saying this is why it's happening, this is how it bothers us,
Yeah.
then it's more of a, oh, okay, well, what can we do about that? And it's hoping that they actually want to help with that rather than it being a, oh no, that's...
Yeah, and I like the word you used there, abstract. I think when people are in the positions of power and they're making these decisions, a lot of these decisions are based on the abstract, and talking to the people is a really good recommendation.
I mean, probably more people who can speak right, because
Yeah.
I've got so many good ideas in my head and they just don't come out.
I would say you've been very articulate and you've said a lot of very good points. So we are coming to the end of the podcast. What we're going to do now is I just want you to, is there anything that I've not asked you that you wish I'd have asked you? Or is there anything else that you want to say just on this topic of housing?
I'd definitely say that I think having the discussion, even if it is just a discussion, helps the topic, you know, that people actually do care about what's happening, you know, rather than it being, oh, you know, they're not listening to us, they're not, you know. And despite me not being particularly articulate in some ways, I am very, you know, I want to make sure that this is something that you can do, you know, and I don't know. I mean, just knowing that someone's actually caring about it is, I'd say, a good step, really, rather than it being like, oh no one's bothered about it, you know.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to that. And I think, you know, it's quite reassuring in a way. But no, I don't have any questions.
No, you've done really, really well. And I've learnt so much just from talking to you, and I'm sure everybody who's watching this will feel the same. So thank you very much for taking the time to answer those questions and put your opinions across. So next week we're going to be back here and we're going to be talking about ABS, so anti-social behaviour. Yes, I said that wrong. So yeah, like and share. Make sure you come in and support Coalville Can. And if you have access to policymakers, tell them your story and hopefully they'll listen and make that change. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking to you, Tia.
Likewise.
Oh, Coalville, can you hear them calling? Your mind's rising, young stars falling. I'm chatting the bill, we hear it all. Voices rising, stories told. Jobs to build and homes to fill. That the song of Coalville, the song of Coalville. The song of Coalville. Empty pockets, but the days run long. Trying to hustle, but the world feels wrong. No keys, no door, they can call their own. Just waiting on a future still unknown. If we lift them up, they'll rise from the grave. Light up this town in a brand new way.